Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I think we're going to start the program now. So everybody, if you're hungry, grab something to eat. There's plenty of food and take a seat, coffee if you need it. My name is Bruce. I work with the Human Rights Working Group, along with Dolores and Jeff and Melvin and others. And we're happy to have this forum. Um, the forums are a regular feature of the United First Unitarian Universalists of San Francisco. Sorry. Um, and forum is an opportunity to bring different speakers on different issues here and have a discussion about them. So last week we had a discussion about immigration and mobilizing people to take up different fronts in the struggle to defend our immigrant community. And this week, Sunday today, we're having a discussion about the source, the immediate source of the terror that's being unleashed on immigrants across the country, including here in San Francisco. Um, and what are we going to do about the not only just the abuses and the injustices, but what are we going to do about the regime that is pushing a whole fascist program here in this country, which is so dangerous for us and for the whole world. So anyway, thank you for coming today. And I'm going to introduce Dolores, who's going to come up here and do the Ohlone prayer recognition.
Thank you, Bruce, and good morning, everyone. We, the members of the First Unitarian Universalist Society of San Francisco, acknowledge that our community is located on the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone tribes, the original inhabitants of the San Francisco Peninsula. We recognize that we benefit from living and working here, and we affirm their sovereign rights as First Peoples. The Greater Bay Area is also the ancestral territory of the Miwok, Yokuts, Patwin, and other tribes. As the original stewards of this land, the indigenous peoples understood the interconnectedness of all things and maintained harmony with nature for millennia. We honor them now for their enduring commitment to our Mother Earth. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dolores. Before I introduce our speaker from Refuse Fascism, Sully, I'd like to make a few comments about Refuse Fascism and how I see this moment. Refuse Fascism emerged around 2015, just after the electoral victory of the first Trump government, the Trump-Pence regime. The initiators of Refuse Fascism identified that government as one guided by a fascist ideology and program, a view held by very few people back then. Those who initiated Refuse Fascism were able to discern the road that Trump was taking based on an observation and analysis of society and the dominant system by a revolutionary political leader named Bob Avakian. Refuse Fascism rallied people around this understanding, which influenced the political terrain at that time. Now Trump, too, has fully vindicated the warning that Refuse Fascism issued back then. Now we are in a more precarious moment. A lot of people have looked to the 1930s to understand the nature of this government and what it portends. And there are real similarities and also some very important differences. One of those differences I'd like to point to is the nature of the population here, a country with a very diverse population which includes 50 million immigrants. I'd also like to point to the fact that we have a movement of resistance, which has historical roots in the struggle against racism, misogyny, and patriarchy, and which holds great potential for bringing millions of people into struggle to defeat this MAGA fascism. But how do we realize that potential? This, I believe, is the burning question, one which Refuse Fascism has a proposed answer to. Sully, who will speak to us today, was here in early June, and her presence was very appreciated. On the eve of the first No Kings rally, her energy, her eloquence, and her strong spirit helped galvanize what was a large turnout of this community for that huge outpouring on June 14. I very much appreciate Sully, who I've seen lead demonstrations on the street. We're fortunate to have her here again today. After Sully speaks, there will be a Q&A and discussion. If you have a question or comment, please write it down on the cards that are on the tables and around the room. If you need a card, just ask me and I'll get you one. And with that, let me ask Sully to come up here.
Thank you, Bruce, for that introduction. That was very kind. My name is Sully. I am 18 years old, and I joined Refuse Fascism over the summer because I saw a need in the world, a need to do something to stop the atrocities that I was witnessing. But I couldn't see outside the box what we actually needed to do. In the past months, I have learned about and stepped up to be a leader in the NorCal chapter of Refuse Fascism. We may have differences about the kind of world we want to live in, but none of us will get to see that world if this fascist regime is allowed to remain in power. So if you know that the Trump regime must go now, you're in the right place, because we have a real strategy to make that happen. Behind you on the table is a flyer for an emergency meeting this Wednesday at 6 p.m. Sansara Taylor, Refuse Fascism's co-founder and co-initiator, as Bruce spoke to, will speak on why and how we can non-violently drive this regime from power. This is an important meeting. Don't miss it. Fascism is not a looming threat. It is upon us now. Humanity's only hope is for the decent people of this country to rise in our millions. We cannot wait for future and rigged elections. We must drive the Trump regime from power. That's from the call for November 5th, also on the table behind you. What do we mean by that? We mean fascism isn't some future nightmare. It's already here and consolidating. This regime is tearing up the rule of law to establish a fully fascist dictatorship. Trump is eliminating free speech, canceling comedians Jimmy Kimmel and Stephen Colbert over jokes. He is violating international law, bombing Venezuelan boats without evidence or due process, and saying that's a good thing. Trump's Defense Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, said this marks a new military direction. Maximum lethality, not tepid legality. Violent effect, not politically correct. A horrific sentence. And a perfect example of why we say, in the name of humanity, this must be stopped. Fascism is consolidating in the most powerful country on earth. With global economic control, the world's greatest military, and nuclear weapons they're willing to use. Hitler was defeated by the world powers, but we are the world power. Who do you think can stop us if we don't stop ourselves? Again from the call. The Trump fascist regime is illegitimate. What is demanding we become unconscionable. At every level of society, in every institution, tens of millions of us know this in our bones. If we dare, we can defeat a horror that threatens humanity's very survival. If we fail to even try, future generations, if they exist, will never forgive us. Fascism is always illegitimate, even if it rises through elections. It destroys the very laws that put it in power, shredding the Constitution and silencing dissent. The First Amendment has been gutted, with the regime labeling critics as enemies and using state power to intimidate, censor, and punish. Due process has been trampled as people are detained without trial, subjected to cruel conditions, and denied basic legal rights. This regime doesn't seek justice, it seeks domination, imposing brutal male supremacist, white supremacist, and Christian fundamentalist order on all of society. This regime is fascist, and fascism is never illegitimate. No person calls Hitler's regime legitimate. No one would say, well, we'll vote him out. He deserves to stay. No. The German people should have resisted and saved millions. After Hitler was defeated, the German people said, we didn't know. We didn't know what was happening in the camps. I heard a story recently from an Irish immigrant who was a recent survivor of one of the American concentration camps, kidnapped because he looked Mexican. He spoke of being caged in a cell with one bathroom, meant for a maximum of 10 people and packed with around 100. He spoke of watching a man he did not know the name of beg for his heart medication day after day till he died in the rec yard, collapsing of a heart attack in front of everyone. These are only the stories we're hearing. Worms in the food, people sleeping on concrete, if there's room to sleep at all. What's the next step? Think deeply, because this is fascism with everything that implies historically. What will we let this regime do and be complicit in? This is an ethnic cleansing, and we cannot say we didn't know. It's time to be brave. So I say it again. Fascism is never illegitimate. But then what do we do about it? How do we stop this accelerating horror? It won't be stopped by the midterms. He's already rigging elections, removing mail-in ballots, redistricting, shutting down polling places. And even if they are fair, cities are militarized. A year from now, do you think there will be fewer soldiers in the streets? Will Black people or immigrants feel safe voting beside ICE agents trained to brutalize? And if by some miracle Trump allows a fair election and loses, will he abide by the results? Again, from the call. No honest person can expect the tyrant who instigated then pardoned the January 6th insurrectionists to respect any election he loses. So not the elections and not the courts, but the decent people organizing massively are what will defeat Trump fascism. Again, from the call. Beginning November 5th, the 1-year anniversary of Trump's election, flood DC in nonviolent protest. Surround the White House, surround the Capitol, surround the fascist-packed, illegitimate Supreme Court. Come back again and again across the country, refuse to comply. Millions of us together grind the machinery of the fascist regime to a halt. Do not stop until Trump is removed. That is how courageous, righteously angry people have defeated fascism historically. In South Korea recently, President Yoon Suk-yeol tried to clamp down with martial law, but it backfired. Millions filled the street week after week. Protesters brought candles, pans, pots, full families marching, even in the freezing winter. The political crisis grew so intense that the government had no choice. Yoon was impeached, arrested, and faced prosecution and conviction. Egypt, 2011. After 30 years of dictatorship, people rose against Hosni Mubarak. For weeks, Tahrir Square overflowed with protesters. The state tried to crush the uprising with force, but the people did not back down. Even the army abandoned Mubarak, who stepped down under pressure from below. Pakistan, 2008. After General Musharraf declared emergency rule, banned judges, and jailed opposition leaders, lawyers, students, and everyday people took to the streets. Sustained protest broke the dictator's back. Mass resistance forced him to resign. Massive, sustained, nonviolent protest, and this can be done. By refusing to surrender our future and humanity to a vengeful fascist maniac. By millions rising in massive, unrelenting protest and resistance. By defying and refusing to comply with fascist dictates. By walking out, by shutting down, by fearlessly losing our platforms and influence to inspire others to join us. And especially by shutting down DC, the regime's power and base, and the front line of Trump's attack. So what do? I'll give you 3 things. Spread the call for November 5th. We need to tell everyone, neighbors, friends, family. Whenever there are crowds, we get stacks of flyers out. I've been referring to this call for a reason. It's packed with everything we need to argue. You don't have to be an expert. This call speaks for you. Grab stickers, posters, flyers, sign up where you can find more. We have them at the bookstore. We can bring them here. Put them everywhere. Telephone poles, school walls, community boards. Let's saturate the country with it. If we are made this our mission, we could have the whole country buzzing about November 5th in a week. We could make this the thing that everyone is talking about. Donate. Not just $1 or $2, but a few thousand if you have it to spare. A couple hundred if you don't. If you can manage 50 or 20, that's good too. Fighting fascism isn't free. We have to pay for all those flyers to get them in people's hands. We're organizing plane tickets and buses and trying to support the activists who are doing this full time. The donation isn't just your good deed for the year, it's an active investment in the future of humanity. It is a payment that saves lives and all of our futures. So donate. Ask your friends to donate. Ask your families. Ask your communities. What do they have to spare when it comes to the future? This Wednesday, the 24th, Sansara Taylor is speaking here at the UU, an incredibly timely emergency meeting. Come. Skip work if you have to. Bring everyone you know who cares about others and hurts to see the horror of this regime. Come and join an urgently necessary movement. Get this meeting out broadly. Post it on Instagram, Facebook, whatever you have. Imagine if we got 100 people here, 200, 500. Imagine if they could all hear Sansara make these arguments in depth, speaking on the call for November 5th. Imagine if even half of them donated and brought in others. This gets exponential. This is important. Don't miss it. Because this regime is illegitimate. What it is asking us to become unconscionable. History is full of examples of people who had right on their side and fought against tremendous odds and were victorious. It is also full of examples of people passively hoping to wait it out, only to get swallowed up by a horror beyond which they ever imagined. The future is unwritten. Which one we get is up to us. In the name of humanity, we refuse to accept a fascist America. The fascist Trump regime must go now. I want you to say it with me. In the name of humanity, we refuse to accept a fascist America. Thank you. We'll now move on to a question forum. If you have questions about this plan for November 5th, if you have concerns like how do we actually make this happen, please do ask those questions. You can also write them on a piece of paper. You can ask Bruce for one, and that can be handed to me. Let's get this forum started. Wednesday, the 24th, 6 o'clock. I'm sorry if I didn't make that clear. Here.
Okay, is this live?
It's not. Use this
Testing. Okay. I just have one question. Sully, what do you see as sort of the roadmap to the 5th? I mean, are there steps between now and then that you see that might help bring, I don't know, sort of a momentum? I know there's a lot of things obviously going on right now with Jimmy Kimmel and the attack, the raids that are going on, and there's a lot of resistance in many different places around the country, including here in San Francisco. But do you see any kind of stepping stones to the 5th that might get more and more people into the sort of the confidence that they can do something like this?
Well, it is hard. We are facing tremendous odds. No, October 18th, this No Kings protest, that's a big step. It actually makes this more possible. A slogan we're putting out there is all out for No Kings, October 18th, and on to November 5th for the fall of the regime. A one-day protest alone is not going to be what we need, but massive, unrelenting protest is. And there are millions of people who hate this in their bones. Millions of people who hate this come out day after day in smaller ways, but we need them to come out in a big way. The regime is consolidating quickly. There is an aspect of this is go big or go home. We need something massive. We also need to figure out how to get there. Part of how we get there is building broad unity with many other organizations. It is going out to other organizations who also hate this and saying, join us in November 5th. Come. Even if you're marching under your own message, your own banner, even if you don't agree with us, come anyway, because this is what we need to do. And that is inarguable.
One question that you already referred to, I don't know if you want to elaborate on it anymore, but is there a relationship between November 5th action and October 18? Is there a relationship between October 18 and November 5th? I mean, Sully already spoke to it to some degree, but I don't if she wants to.
I can elaborate, yeah. Part of the way that we make this November 5th happen is that we get the whole country talking about it. Like you go home, you go to the store, they ask, are you going to November 5th? Are you going to DC for the fall of the regime? And the ways that we do that is we saturate the country. I said this earlier, like visually saturated. Everywhere you go, November 5th is up on a pole. There's a sticker there. There's a poster there. There's a flyer there. There's flyers in the halls of every restaurant that you know. They're closing for November the 5th because they're sending food to DC. These are the types of things that need to happen. One of the ways that those can happen is by going out to these protests and telling people about this. Like October 18th, which could be really big. It could be like the first Snow Kings, which had upwards of 5 to 7 million people. Getting our reach out that broadly would be amazing for jump starting how we get this out to people. If that answers your question. Yes, so Indivisible is hosting October 18th. We specifically say that this is a call initiated by Refuse Fascism, but open to all. This is the strategy that we think needs to happen. And we could argue about what needs to happen, but it's not about us calling it. It's not our property, the protest. It's about what actually we need to do to remove Trump from power.
Okay, well, there's a similar question. What other organizations do you work with? For example, do you work with or plan to get together with the Answer Coalition, Code Pink, or Indivisible, or any other organization? So I guess that's just a follow-up to what you just said.
Yeah, we do need a broad unity. We have been reaching out to other organizations, even organizations beyond normally what we would reach out to in this situation, because people are feeling this deeply. Recently, I went to the ASUC, the student body government of Cal, an institution that has been a major player in resistance and in the free speech movement in the 60s. They have always played a part here, but they need to play a bigger part. We went to them and I talked to them and I spoke to them, and every person that I talked to came at me with, we need to do something. And clearly this isn't working. The institutions around us are stopping us from getting this done through the general means that we used to do. And they can't see outside the box of those means of filing complaints and making statements. They can't see outside the box. But when we come to them with this regime needs to go now, we need something that matches the severity of what's happening, they feel that it's right. They feel it like, oh, that finally makes sense, and they're drawn to it. There are some people who want maybe an emergency election after all of the facets of Trump regime is removed. I mean, think about the Jim Crow, the fight against Jim Crow. Like, that wasn't just a guy that we removed. That was an entire set of laws and ideas that were taken down from power. It would be that sort of thing. We would have the momentum, and there would be a chance to make great change. I am a member of the Revcom Corps for the Emancipation of Humanity. I think we need to move on to a socialist society based on the vision of Bob Avakian. But somebody else might want a revised democratic society, actually adhering to the ideals set in the Constitution that are currently being broken and destroyed. Um, but that only happens through a situation where Trump is removed. So I hope we can all agree that Trump has to be removed. Mass sustained nonviolent resistance, that pressure from below, is what pushes dictators out. I gave a couple of examples, like Egypt, South Korea. Um, these are examples of situations where the power of the people made it so the regime could not govern, and the opponents of the regime, in Hosni Mubarak's case, the military was forced into a role of being an opponent, but we don't have to force anybody into the role of being an opponent. The Democrats are still in power. They are opponents, but they will only do something if we force them to, because they don't want to risk the upheaval of their system. They don't want to risk that unless we upheave their system. We force them to, and also give them cover to, remove the Trump regime. There's a lot of specific ways that can happen. We could talk about impeachment, like a 2025. He could be a 25th Amendment. He could be arrested. Like there's these different legal ways, but ultimately, the only way that those come about is through mass sustained nonviolent protest.
Okay. And anyway, there's a person here that has something to say and has a kind of an ally to this struggle. And Monique, I think her name is, and she's going to come up and just say a couple of things and her question. She actually has a question here, so I'll let her read the question and maybe elaborate on it.
Thank you for coming up, Monique.
Yeah, you're welcome. Um, oh, it's nice to be here. I've never been inside this church, although I thought about maybe joining at one point. Oh, sorry.
You just gotta come closer to it.
Okay, really? All right, there we go. Is that better? Yeah, this is so cool that you guys have this. I'm actually a member of the Quaker Meeting House down the road. And one of your parishioners, Hannah, came and talked with us last year about how your winter shelter went, and now we're following in your footsteps with opening that up. So anyways, it's really cool to just be in faith communities that are different from my own, I think. And on that note, I really appreciated what you said about like it's not about us, calling for something or owning a protest. It's about all of us. And so I guess my question to Suri, to all of us is, what do we think? And this could help build towards something like November 5th or October 18th, depending on timing. But what do we all think of having a 3 to 4 day vigil where 24 hours we pray or meditate, whatever way we practice faith, we pray for an end to the Trump regime, an end to the Trump agenda. And I really feel like that's where our heart and souls have to be, because the workers of this nation, we all come to church or some aspect of religious life during our week, many of us. And so I think if we were to reach across all of our faith communities, we could really inspire a lot of us in the working class to step up and take our place in the world instead of feeling oppressed and being oppressed and pitted against each other. So I don't know. I know here you guys have the Human Rights Committee, and maybe we could have a meeting with you all to work on setting up a vigil if that would be of interest to your members, and maybe I know you're not in a religious group, but maybe Refuse Fascism or RevCom could also take part in. Yeah, that's my question. So I don't know if other people have a response to or.
I can speak to that briefly and then other people can. I do think that it's important to, I was talking about building broad unity. And I think that this vigil could be a way to do that, to bring different types of religious forces together. Because we are united around Trump must go now, or we should be. There are different ways to bring religious forces together. It can be a meeting, it could be a vigil. It can be a vigil in a place like in front of Civic Center to sort of demonstrate that religious forces do not accept this. But then we have to make the challenge to do more. We have to make the challenge to say, what if churches were able to, they're all across the country. What if the Unitarian Universalists were to get buses of people to get to DC? What if it were to make November 5th all over, just constantly in every congregation, November 5th, buses, plane tickets? What if it were to feed people who are actually in DC? House people who need a space to live while they're fighting for this. So yes, we need that broad coalition, and a vigil is a way to start that, but we also need more.
Okay, so on that note about more, here's a question. Do you have anyone in the Congress that agrees with this proposal, this program? And what do you think of Zoran Mondani, the Democratic Socialist candidate in New York?
Individual Democrats can play a big role. Individual Democrats, but not the democratic institution itself. The democratic institution itself is dealing with a little bit of a contradiction because they don't want to call for the type of mass resistance that's actually necessary to stop this, because it risks their system. It's a risk that the people then turn on them. So they don't want to, but they can be forced to. And different individual Democrats can be a large part of that. Governor Newsom, he needs to do more, but his calling for protest for the last No Kings, that was good. There's a meeting set up with Sansara Taylor and Senator Weider just a day after she's coming to speak here. Zoran Mondani, we would love to reach out to him. We would love to speak to him about November 5th. We haven't set that up yet. But we have a chapter in New York who could try to set that up. We're trying to set up meetings with different political figures like Barbara Lee and Latifah Simon. We're reaching out broadly. Normally communists and Democrats, we don't get along. But this is a moment that needs to be taken up by everyone.
Okay, so here's a question or a comment on you might say the opposition. Okay, so this morning at 11 a.m. in Arizona, there is a huge gathering in several stadiums in Phoenix for the murdered Charlie Kirk. This will be continuously aired on TV for many days. I guess the question here or the comment here has to do with how do we respond to that? How do we understand that?
I think we should talk briefly about the murder of Charlie Kirk. Refuse Fascism stand. I mean, I could pull up. We made a public statement about this, but I'll talk a little bit about what that public statement meant. It's not a good thing that he was murdered. Murder is not a good thing. Violence is not a good thing. And what I say about violence is that every violent act is a capitulation to the violent terms set by the fascists. Their strength is in their violence. So every time we engage in violence against this fascism, we are lowering ourselves to our level and putting ourselves at a disadvantage. Every violent act is a capitulation. Every violent act taken up against the fascists is a capitulation. So how do we react to these masses of people, these fascists, following behind the fascist Charlie Kirk's footsteps. He was not a good man. We do have to remember him honestly. He was a very he said horrific things. He believed in the eradication of free speech and human rights in many different aspects. But we do have to respond in a principled way. Ultimately, I think part of that question there was, what do we do about the people who support the fascists? Well, honestly, there's more of us than there are of them. A lot more. Half of the people in this country didn't vote. Now, some of those are children, but 75 million people voted for Kamala. And a lot of those people voted not because they liked Kamala, but because they hated Trump. I go around to people and I see that they're feeling this. They're agonized. Last night, I was at a family event, and a family friend, basically an uncle of mine, came up to me and said, "You know, I heard you're an activist. I'm really depressed. I don't know what to do about this." And we talked. We talked for like half an hour about what do we actually do about this fascism. He might be coming to this Wednesday at 6 p.m., the 24th here, um, to learn more about this. So there's a lot of people out there. The possibility, the basis exists.
Okay, so here a question sort of in that same line that you've been speaking to. Help me with the logistics of how we get rid of Trump. Don't we still need Congress to impeach him, but Congress is impotent?
I mean, that's a fair question. We have to look at the situation as it is changing and it is dynamic. So, yes, Congress is in his pocket, the Supreme Court is in his pocket. But if we, the people, make a movement of sustained massive resistance, you can even topple. I mean, it's incredibly difficult, much more difficult than it is before all of the opponents of Trump has been purged. But you can create a situation where the dictator has to be removed. That's what happened in Chile with Pinochet. He ruled for 40 years. There weren't opposition. But the people still rose and decided that it was unacceptable. And because of that, he was forced from power because the military sided with the people, realizing they could not maintain control otherwise. I've spoken a little to how the different specific ways Trump could be removed. Yes, impeachment is one of them. But ultimately, they only happen because the masses of people change the situation.
Okay, well, here's a different aspect of this. Do you believe we need specific training to be to be protected from the physical harm of the police and I guess police, etc.?
Special training. I'm not sure what the question means by special training, but I will talk a little bit about risk. Risk is something that is sort of inherent to this fight right now. It's dangerous. I'm not going to lie about that. We will face repression, but it is important to come back stronger. And it is dangerous. But I'll repeat something Sansara Taylor once said, that it is safer if we all stand up than it is if we are silent.
So there was a question about just a specific question about something you mentioned. Was the first person you mentioned what country you mentioned someone?
The former president of South Korea,
Yeah,
Yoon Suk Yeol.
that was the question. That was the
Yeah.
question. Is there any more questions or anybody want to come up here and make a comment? Or
I would love to sort of build this into a discussion. If people want to raise hands and then respond to each other a little bit, and then we can move to sort of a looser, like just like mingling, talking about this after. Go ahead.
do you want to come up? Do you want to come up here, Ann? You could just use the mic. You could that way people can hear you.
We can also, well, I guess we can't. The mic isn't mobile.
I work with two people, one of whom is DACA and the other of whom is an Ukrainian refugee who no longer has protective status. I wonder about people who are in that situation. I know the DACA person wouldn't dare, but the Ukrainian who has no refugees, no protection right now, might be interested in protesting in DC. My question is, are you working at all in other parts of the country, in the South, in other parts of the country where the people who may have really supported Trump and are in really poor circumstances and very threatened? How are we addressing their needs and being a part of this? That's it.
That is a good question. I'll say a few comments, and I'd love to hear what other people think on that. Part of it is that I'm trying to remember the exact wording of your question so I can respond effectively, and I'm forgetting. Other parts of, yeah, there we go. We are a national organization. We have chapters all over the country who are working to get this call out, to bring this to multitudes of people. There is a lot of atrocities happening right now. The economy is one that is going to hit us sooner rather than later, and it will be bad. People are already spending way more in their groceries. I was on call with my mom, and she said, I went to Lucky's, and a grocery shop that would normally take $200, it took $500. And she was like, damn, because it's happening. And those people do need support, but we need to build that community support around removing Trump from power, because we can't help enough people to remove Trump from power. We have to build that pressure from below to actually change those physical circumstance of those people. In terms of the people who are, in terms of the people who really staunchly agreed with Trump and still do, I don't think that we need them, to be honest. We don't need the fascists. There's enough of us who hate this. We see them every day. You see them in the grocery store. You see them when you go to work. You talk to them. They're your friends. They're your family. Something that Miepkes said, ordinary people can do extraordinary things. She was a Dutch woman who was the secretary of Anne Frank's father, and she hid them. She had never done anything like it before. She never thought about anything like it before. But when he came and he was asked, can you hide my family? She said yes. Ordinary people can do extraordinary things.
And that I was just thinking myself of a question, and that is sort of related to what Anne's question is. There are all these struggles that are going on, and some of us here in this congregation are involved in vigils at ICE, protecting day laborers at corners, organizing to bring food to people who are sort of stuck in their homes right now because they're afraid to leave, and all those sort of things. Plus, there's many other kind of struggles. So, what would you say to the folks that are into those kind of immediate things in relationship to November 5? How do they combine the two, or how do they fold one into the other, or something like that?
The dynamic between smaller direct action and the removal of the Trump regime as a whole is complex. We do need to be doing those things. We need to be supporting our communities. We need to be growing their resilience. But ultimately, all of those efforts need to head into November 5th. They need to head into all out on No King's Day and on to November 5th. And what I mean by that is that people need to be talking about this with the people they're working with immigrants, whether or not immigrants are able to go to DC. we need to be helping people. It's true. We need to be helping people so that we can sustain ourselves. But that needs to be rolled into removing the Trump regime as a whole. And there are ways to take care of both. But I do think it's important that we focus our efforts on getting this out there as broadly as possible and coming on Wednesday at 6 p.m. here to hear Sansara Taylor speak, bringing your friends, bringing your family, bringing everyone you know that might want to hear this.
Any other questions? I mean, now this is it's a major, major undertaking. I just wanted to say to Monique that we do have a vigil here. Just, I'm not saying this and replacing what you had said, because what you said was important. But we have a vigil here every Wednesday from 8 to 9. And so you're welcome to come and be part of that. But I do think that I do think the vigils, and I think being out on the street with signs everywhere. This is it's relatively simple. I mean, it's like if people say this is such a monstrous undertaking. It is, but it's a monstrous undertaking that can be accomplished by millions of people or tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people taking a little piece of it and becoming part of it. You can take a sign, go into the street and say, November 5th, I'm going to be in DC, or November, you should be in DC, or let's go to King's Day on the 18th and then go to DC or something. But just, you could just make a sign. It's easy to do. Go out in the street with a couple friends. So there's a way of mobilizing the energy. And I think what Sully is saying, all of us know this. People are extraordinarily anxious and in some ways fearful, but also determined and defiant. There's a lot of defiance also in this society. You hear it all the time. I see a hand. Do you want to come on up, Karen?
Yes, I can. Help us plan it. That's my answer. We don't.
I don't think that in here in San Francisco, I haven't seen yet the specifics about that. But I think the last time June 14, there was a major demonstration in San Francisco, but they were all over the Bay Area, and other people who were involved in that can speak to that too. I don't think that that's been determined yet. I mean, I haven't seen it, so I don't know.
Yeah, it hasn't been determined yet. Um, yeah, I mean, there's a lot to do. We're reaching out to different organizations, different political forces. I spoke of reaching out to Barbara Lee, Senator Wiener, Latifah Simon, the AUSC, ASUC, all of these different forces. That takes time, and it takes time to get this call out there. So if you think that we need a date for November 5th, I mean, for October 18th, I invite you to, when you walk out, go and sign up. Sign up to figure out when we do have a date, and sign up to help us plan where exactly we should protest that day, what we should join. If there isn't something set up here, if we should set up something and try to bring it to the Bay Area ourselves. Those are the type of questions that being an organizer means. And if you can donate, it helps us do that.
I mean, June 14, there was a very large contingent from Unitarian Universalist San Francisco. I don't know how many exactly, but maybe 40 people. This time, I think the entire congregation should be there. And every congregation in San Francisco should be there. That this is the kind of moment that that calls for that. And everybody here can be an organizer, Everybody here can do something, and that's what it's going to take. We have to break with old habits of, of feeling, habits of feeling like it's too big a thing for us to take on. We have to break with that because it's not. And we had the forum last week, and Tom, who's over here, said something that I thought was really important, and that is that it feels overwhelming, but everybody can take one task and by doing so can make a difference. That's the reality. And it's going to be on us, if it's going to succeed or fail. Donald?
Need a time check.
A common song. We don't care about being a solidarity group that was drained out of us over the last 50 years. We had the war in Vietnam, but it's been drained out of us. And instead we're told what we should do. Like we're little kindergarten kids. We're told to show up. We're not given any training. I remember more protests. We had 1 month of preparation even for one protest. We learned the game of trust. Each of us would fall into a crowd with our backs. So we learned to trust the crowd will win. There were all sorts of techniques to build a common solidarity, a feeling that we're fighting not just against that war, but all wars. But we have none of that now.
Well, there is a common slogan, at least Refuse Fascism has put out the slogan.
It is not something that appeals to our emotions. What we can say, in fascism, you are told what to think, not just how to behave, and can give examples from Europe, etc. But real examples that make us realize that fascism isn't just a academic term. They're not being told. Instead, we're told just to show up. And if we just show up like that, we are allowing ourselves to be cannon fodder. And cannon fodder might be necessary, but we're not told that either.
Here's what I think. I think that we're not cannon fire. We are real thinking human beings. And I think that call to emotions are important. I think that there's a reason why every time I go on Instagram, I cry afterwards, because there is a real feeling, a calling to emotion. I told a story of the Irishman, and that sticks with me. That there was of a man pleading for his heart medication. It sticks with me. We have a chain of faces of the disappeared. And we do need a common slogan. We need something to unite under. We need Trump must go now. The fascist regime must go now. And the reason why we say fascism is because it has real meaning, real historical context. Concentration camps, death camps, Hitler, Mussolini, repression, attacks on human rights, the removal of opponents in horrific ways, people running and galvanizing fascist civilians to attack people. It has real meaning. It has real meaning, and it feels deeply if you understand truly what fascism actually is. And I think part of the reason why we don't have training right now is because we don't have people and we don't have time. We need to train as we go. So come with us. I'm 18. I'll say it again. I'm 18 and I'm up here being a leader. What can you do in 3 months? What can you learn in 3 months? What can you learn? What can you become? What type of leader can you learn while doing this? What type of organizer? So that's my answer.
We can talk about this more. I mean, there are some things that I think are really important to understand about what happened in the 1930s and what's happening now, and the parallels and the deeper issue that the society is facing. But we don't. This forum is not set up for that particular conversation. But if people are interested in that kind of a conversation, we could have another forum to talk about it. But here's another question that I was just handed. What about the next congressional elections of November 2026?
Well, I think this should be the last question we sort of answer because we are sort of getting to time and we want to wrap up a little bit, have time to talk amongst each other, discuss these ideas, discuss the call, go get it from the table. But in terms of the 2026 elections, I think the call highlights it pretty well. The elections are far too late. Um, this happened in less than a year. This amount of fascist acceleration happened in less than a year. Imagine where we'll be in a year. Do you think we'll even have elections? We may not. We might not have elections. If we do, they will be rigged. There will be militarized people standing over their shoulders. Do you think people will feel safe to cast ballots? And even if it is fair, even if by some miracle we win, through all of that, will he accept an election he loses? He has shown that he doesn't. So elections are not the process in which we defeat this regime. It is through mass sustained resistance. I was reading about past fascist regimes. There's been, I think they counted like 53 of them, and all but one were not defeated by elections. And that one was a special case. Elections are not the way that we defeat fascism. Fascism is inherently dictatorial. I would like to move us to talking amongst each other, to discussing this. I can see it in your eyes. You have a lot of questions. We have one more question that you want to say. Okay.
The gentleman who spoke up about the importance of nonviolent training is right. One has to know what to do with a saboteur who is going to give the movement a bad name, because that person will move to do something violent. And there's training. There used to be a lot of training for this. I cannot find it. I've tried and tried to get a person to come in person here to train people in this church and other churches. I can't find anyone who will respond anymore. So it's incredibly important, and I would urge everybody to try to find out who is doing this. It is critical, essential. Thank you.
Well, just on that note, there is a lot of training going on around the immigrant defense. And in fact, tomorrow night, at 16th and Mission, we have meetings. There are meetings there on every Tuesday, but there's going to be a special training about what to do if ICE shows up at a corner. This is part of the adopt a corner thing. There's a lot of training, and Tom can talk about it as well. A lot of training that's going on around the immigrant, and I think some of that is applicable to what was just mentioned. Meg just mentioned. What do you do in a case of a provocateur coming around, or what do you do when ICE shows up? How do you respond, and so on. Anyway, so if you want to know more about that and want to come to that training tomorrow, you can talk to me. But we do have to wrap up this program. I just want to reiterate that Wednesday at 6 o'clock in here, Sansara Taylor, who's one of the leaders of Refuse Fascism, is going to be here. I highly recommend that people go online and see some of her videos. She's been out there a lot. She's been around and is quite an amazing speaker and leader. So it's going to be a real privilege to be here. The fact that she's going to be here, she's coming all the way from the East Coast. So I really hope that people here will call everybody you know, email everyone you know, urge people to come here so we can have a bigger, more robust conversation about this, because this is really about our future, right? Okay, so then also next Sunday, September 28th, here at in this room at 9 a.m. Well, starting at 9 a.m. like today, 9:30 is the forum. Paul Rudy will be talking about something that sounds kind of vaguely similar here. Prospects for the continuation of life on Earth and the human species.